This is the Bible Show. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Bible Show. My name is Sam. Joining me is Will, and we are continuing our series in the book of Genesis. Today we're in Genesis 38. And so just to summarize, this is kind of a left turn in the story. So we've got Jacob, who has 12 sons. Last chapter, the camera was primarily focused on Joseph. Today, the camera is primarily focused on Judah. And so if you're coming from the last chapter, we found that Jacob obviously, and we've been learning this for several chapters now, Jacob has favorites.
Yeah.
And he loves the sons of Rachel, who is the love of his life, while he has shown seeming indifference, maybe even contempt toward Leah and her sons. And so in that story, he shows all the favoritism to Joseph, gives him the coat of many colors, the richly ornamented robe, and sending out Joseph on like missions to find out everything that the other sons are doing wrong. And they resent him. And so they fake his death, throw him in a well, sell him to Ishmaelite and Midianite traders, sell him into slavery down into Egypt for 20 pieces of silver, which was Judah's plan. Like, he's the one who's like, we should get something out of this. And so you already have a bad taste in your mouth about this Judah guy, which, by the way, Judah is the Hebrew form of what name? Judas, who sells Jesus for silver. Here you have Judah selling Joseph for silver. And so Joseph is now in Egypt. Jacob is in absolute mourning. Like he has said, I'm never going to, my period of mourning is never going to end. I'm going to go down to the grave, down to Sheol in mourning. I will never be comforted. All the sons are like, oh, Dad, we're so sorry. Here's this bloody coat. He must have been eaten by an animal. And as Dad is falling apart, none of them love their father enough to be like, no, Dad, it's okay. It's okay. We're just kidding. We were lying. He's okay. Let's go get him. They let their dad descend into this dark period of inconsolable grief. So it gives you a picture of how broken this family is. And as you see in Genesis 38, right out of the gates, it seems like the family splinters, which you have to read into the text to figure this out. But it seems like there is a splintering of the family that's going to take place over decades. And we're going to see that begin in this chapter. So any thoughts from Genesis 37 into this chapter?
It is just interesting that we just take a pause on Joseph for a second.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, like this is going to be the main character for the rest of Genesis, but just wait. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, so just a heads up, because you want to read everything. When you're going through the Bible, you want to read in chronological order. Like, okay, we just finished Genesis 37. Joseph is being sold down into Egypt. We're going to get into Genesis 39, where he's a servant. He's going to be falsely accused. And we want to assume that everything that happens in Genesis 38 happened before Genesis 39.
Yeah, it's like the next day.
But it's like this weird thing that they do in the movies where it's like, take a break from this character, and now this entirely different storyline pops into the movie. And this is going to be 20 years. Genesis 38 is 20 years long, and the end of Genesis 38 is going to be at the time when the famines are happening, right? Like right before the famines happen, where Judah is then going to be sent down into Egypt to figure out why, what to do about everybody starving. But this whole chapter is going to be a long chapter, but it doesn't feel that way when you read it. You have to realize, like, wait a minute, he had kids, they grew up, they were able to bear children. Like, this is going to be quite a while. Yeah. So let's jump right in. Verse 1, it said, it happened at that time. So right after all of the trauma of Joseph, right then, Judah went down from his brothers and turned aside to a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. So what's going on here? What was the big thing? How did Jacob get into trouble? When you remember back in Genesis 34, why did all of that blow up in his face? Why at Shechem? Why did everything go wrong?
He was at Shechem with Canaanites.
He's at Shechem. Like, he's not supposed to be there. You don't go to the Canaanite towns. Do you know how wicked their culture is? It's terrible over there. Like, you need to be with your kindred. You need to be at a place that's not sacrificing children and committing orgies and all that kind of stuff. What's Judah doing here?
Going right back into it.
I'm going to leave this. I'm leaving my kindred. And just like my dad did when his life got turned upside down and inside out, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go to a Canaanite. And he says he goes into a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. Now, helpful to know Adulamite, because it's like there's so many ites in the Bible.
This is one that you don't hear a lot either.
Yeah, I think probably you only hear it here. But Adullam is a city. It's not a tribe. It's not an ethnicity. So he's literally going to the city of Adullam. And that is about 17 miles northwest of Hebron in the Judean lowlands. So it's like he's far enough away from home to where he's not bumping elbows with family anymore. And this is actually the place where David fights Goliath, right there. This is a city right next to the Valley of Elah. And it's where David's going to hide in the caves. It'll say that these are the caves of Adullam when he's persecuted by Saul. And so what do you expect to happen? It's not just that Judah has changed geographic locations. What else has changed?
I mean, it's changed cultures. He's left his family, seemingly religion at that stage.
We get another story where it's like, good grief, another one of the patriarchs that has to take their tour of duty, walking away from God and finding out how empty life is when you do so.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out, like, wow, Jacob was reprehensible. Judah, it seems, tries to plumb the depths even farther.
He's testing it out.
And thankfully, it's all condensed into one chapter, so we don't have to, like,
10 more weeks of this.
we don't have to linger in all of his dysfunction. But you have to ask the question, like, think about this. Why do you think Judah would leave?
I would leave over shame and guilt. I couldn't look at my dad every day if I just killed his son, and he didn't kill him, but likewise, he's dead to his father for right now in the story.
Yeah.
Just the shame of looking at your dad who says, I'm going to be depressed until the day I die because of this thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's just a reminder looking at sad dad saying like, oh, I could never fill the place of Joseph. Dad doesn't love me like that. He'll never love me like that. Why am I here?
I definitely think that's part of it. I think he's trying to, it feels like he's trying to hold on to things. Like, if you go back and you look at Genesis 35, when Jacob's like, okay, everybody, put your idols away. We're going to bury them. We're going to leave them behind. And then you get to Genesis 37. What are we told? We're told that Joseph is sent back to check on his brothers, and he keeps bringing back to Jacob bad reports about what all the brothers are doing. Well, what does that mean? What bad reports? So when we know that they're back up at Shechem, they're going to Dothan, they're going to all these places. Like, what is going on there? So maybe they haven't walked away from their idolatry. Maybe they are, trying to hide all their behaviors, and they're not ready to walk away from them. So I think you've got the shame and guilt of looking dad in the eye as he's grieving and mourning and inconsolable. That would be hard to deal with if you have a conscience, and I think Judah somewhere deep down right now does. You also have, this, he very clearly has not walked away from his paganism. As we're going to see in this chapter, he is deep into idolatry and pagan practices, not walking with Jacob's God. Maybe it's lingering bitterness toward Jacob for the way that he treats the sons and daughter of Leah. Maybe it's, the fact that he knows, okay, Joseph is going to get everything. So what future do I have here? So it's like, let me go make my own way somewhere else. Like, we don't know. The Bible doesn't come and say, hey, here's the reasons. But when you stack them up and you try to enter into the justifications that Judah's making to himself as to why I'm done, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
You can be like, oh, I could see that. I can picture how that is going to go down.
It gives you a little bit of sympathy for him, even though he loses that very quickly. But it is one where it's like, man, that'd be tough to feel so isolated. Like, he did do wrong, but then also, like, almost feels like he was forced into it in a way because of how he was raised. And it's just like, again, it's just a messy family that you're just like, ugh.
But you got to add color to it, because otherwise these become such sterilized stories. I mean, you got to remember, his oldest brother tried to stage a coup by taking one of his dad's concubines. Yeah. That's the heart of your brothers toward their dad. Simeon and Levi doing what they did at the town of Shechem with the mass slaughter and everything else. Like, these are his older brothers. These are the brothers that he looks up to. So it's not like he's got the greatest of role models. And probably for a good chunk of his life, he's been watching a dad who's doesn't seem all that concerned with being obedient to God. So it's like he doesn't have a lot of structure to where it's not like he was raised in a home where it's like, God is the most important and we're going to be obedient and we're going to worship him because he's good and faithful. And so Judah walks in the examples that he's seen go before him, and he is wicked. And so in this chapter, he's got this 20-year self-imposed exile among the Canaanites. Meanwhile, during all that time, you have the story of Joseph where he's going from suffering to suffering to suffering to exaltation by the end. And all of this is happening simultaneously within this one chapter. So verse 2, it says, there Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. The Shua's the dad. He took her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And so what do you notice here again?
Wait, who's Hira? Why is that person?
Hira's the Adulamite.
Okay. And
it's like some guy, he's the one from the city of Adullam where the Valley of Elah is. Somehow Judah falls in with him and is like, hey, you're a pretty cool guy.
Okay,
I'm going to build some network with you. And that's his entree into Canaanite culture is this guy Hira, who's a Canaanite. All the Adulamites would have been Canaanites.
Okay.
And so here, Judah's like, all right, well, I'm setting up shop here. Just like my dad set up shop at Shechem and life devolved for him, I'm going to set up shop over here near Adullam. And while he's there, he sees the daughter of a Canaanite. And he's like, he sees her, he takes her, he goes into her and has a son. What does that sound like?
The fall.
The fall. You see this everywhere. Like we keep bringing it up on the podcast, but pay attention. Like you see that there's beauty, you take, you eat, and what's going to happen? The son is going to be and we're going to see death, right? See beauty, you take, you consume, and death comes. It says she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name which is just a glorious name. Imagine which, by the way, is the reverse of evil in Hebrew. So ER and then evil in Hebrew is Ra. So it's like when you see those names together, it's like Ra. Anyway, it's a lot of the commentaries talk about it being intentional. Verse 4, it says, she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And another good one.
And this is part of the chapter where it makes sense. Like these are back-to-back sentences, but you don't have babies back-to-back like that. So This is how the length happens.
Correct. So and remember, they have to go from babies to grow up to be of marriageable age. So this chapter is going to take, several years, a lot of years. Verse 4, she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Verse 5, yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah.
It looks like Sheila.
I'm so trying not to say Sheila. Poor guy. Anyway, Shelah. And Judah was in Shezib, which is another one of those little networks of towns down in the Judean lowlands next to Adullam and the Valley of Elah, when she bore him. So, go ahead.
He just wasn't there.
What do you mean?
Well, the third kid, when she bore that child, Judah was just not there.
What do you mean? Why so?
Judah was in Shezib when she bore him.
Okay, yeah, maybe he's gone.
Is that the absent father already?
I don't know, maybe, but I'm thinking like
they've all moved.
All moved. It does not clear. That's a good point. I've never even thought that he's like, no, you
like
have a
already
kid, I'll be over here.
It's like, oh God.
I don't know which way that goes, but that's fascinating. So you don't have the 10 Commandments at this point in the story, right? It's not like God has come and said, here's the laws against polygamy. Here's the laws against all these things that are going to come, as the Bible unfolds. But he has given one command again and again through the patriarchs, which is do not marry a
Canaanite.
And so it's almost like Judah's like, I'm marrying a Canaanite.
That's the one rule.
Like, I'm not going to go after a Babylonian or someone from, Aram or Egypt. I'm going after the one thing God says I can't have. And it's like, ooh, that feels spiteful almost. Like, I'm going to do the precise thing that all of my fathers have been told not to do.
Yeah. It's very garden-esque, too. Like the Garden of Eden. Like, there was only one thing they could not do. Everything else was in their playground, and they're like, I don't want all that. Let's just do this one thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're having to figure out the law, like the moral categories of this God, basically by trial and error. Like, what happens? Does God punish? Like, there's human conscience, at play here. But the law's not written down anywhere yet.
Yeah, does good come from it?
That's right. It's kind of a natural law, the way things play out, but you're not supposed to marry a Canaanite. And so in all of this, he's following the path of Esau, who married Canaanites, who had he has 3 kids that grow old enough to be husbands. And Judah, by the way, it's not like he has these kids and it's like, okay, let's go back home to dad. He stays there. Like, he is establishing himself in Canaanite territory. Which means what? It's not just like I need a break and to get away from those people.
He wants to be a Canaanite.
I'm in with these people. Like, I want to be grafted in almost over here. I'm going to stay in their lands. I'm going to marry their people. I'm going to do business with them. That former life with my father and brothers is like in the past, it seems. And Judah took a wife, for his firstborn son, and her name was Tamar. Now, she's going to be a huge, important character in the story. And what is really, really notable about her in the story of redemption?
She's in it.
She's in it. I mean, I guess that's true, yeah.
She's listed.
But she's listed as a mother in the lineage of Jesus. So when you get to the Gospels, you'll see her name. Like, as the New Testament lays out, here's all the men who so-and-so begat, so-and-so begat, so-and-so, and you walk through the genealogy. It stops for a moment and it says, you need to know 4 women, right? And let's see if I can remember all of them. Tamar's one of them. You get Hagar, who is, going to be in the story of Jericho, who's the prostitute who gets redeemed out of Jericho.
Rahab?
What did I say?
You said Hagar.
Very good. Yeah, definitely not Hagar.
Right. I thought,
whoa. That's almost worth deleting. Anyway, that's bad.
Keep it.
Thank you. You love me.
No, I think people need to see that mistakes happen. It's okay.
No, I'm kidding. All right, so Tamar, Rahab, you get Ruth.
I don't know who the fourth one is.
Bathsheba. Oh. So what do you notice about all those 4 characters? Like, if you know the Bible and you know those stories, they're all like
their one-liner biographies. You're like, I don't like that.
Yeah, not great. So you have Tamar, who by the end of the story you're going to see does something pretty shameful to get into the lineage. Then you have Rahab, who's actually a prostitute in Jericho. Then you have Ruth, who is out of the Moabite line, which is an incestuous line that was triggered, if you remember, when Lot's daughters took advantage of him, got him drunk. One of the sons was Moab. She's a Moabitess, so she's in there. And then you have Bathsheba, who is, more David's fault, who committed adultery with her when she was married to Uriah. And so all of these broken stories, and then Mary in the New Testament will be the 5th woman mentioned. But God says, I want you to know these women are in my line.
Yeah, specifically.
And honors them, by the way. Like, you'll see Rahab honored, actually, for her faith in Hebrews 11, for example, the Hall of Faith. So, but she will be one of those women. And so I want you to know that up front, because as you see the story play out, you're like, wait, what?
It's going to get weird for a second.
This woman, like, you would put her there, but she's like this weird mixture of a really sympathetic character, and yet she does something where you're like, wait, no, you're not allowed to do that. So we'll see. All right, so Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord put him to death. Now, that's kind of wild.
The first time?
Yeah. I mean, you had like the flood, you had Sodom and Gomorrah.
Personally, one human, God was like, I want off this planet.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the Hebrews, it's like a causative verb. He caused him to die. So we don't know if it's like he got, stage 4 cancer all of a sudden, or had a stroke or a heart attack, or if God just went bzz, and he dropped dead. Like, we don't know what that looked like, but it's because he was wicked, God killed him.
It's crazy.
Especially in light of the rest of the scriptures, right? Where it's like, God's patience is endless for some people who are wicked. But for some reason, this guy's wickedness, God's not going to be mocked with. Why? I mean, the Bible doesn't tell us what that wickedness was, but what do you imagine it is?
I have no idea.
I think based on where the story goes, what we're going to see, he was, my theory, and I think it fits with where this goes and how these sons of Judah treat Tamar, I think he's abusive. I think that he is exploiting her, and God looks at that and kills him. And there's a pattern there also, that the matriarchal line of the Messiah, God shows up and gets in people's business. Like Pharaoh, totally overrun with plagues, right? With Abraham and Sarah, when Sarah went into the harem, God says, you can't exploit her. Boom. Suffers plague. Then another guy, Abimelech, takes Sarah into his harem. And what happens? God comes to him and says, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And all of your people, if you do not let her go.
Yeah, no one's going to be born either.
And then you get to, you know, Isaac with Rebecca, and Abimelech has a thing, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And he's got the fear, you know, please take her, you know, I didn't want to do this. And you always see God show up and protect this matriarchal line. And so here, she's going to be in the matriarchal line, and I think is doing things that are not meant to be done. And by the way, Tamar's a Canaanite, so it's not like he's protecting, you know, I don't want you to be with a Canaanite, so, you know, hitting her because she's a Canaanite. But I think he's showing up to protect this matriarchal line.
Yep, makes sense.
So, but here again, you see Judah's doubling down on the Canaanites. It's not just that he took a Canaanite wife for himself. Now he's saying, I want my sons to marry into Canaanites. And by the way, when we say God is saying don't marry Canaanites, this makes it clear that it's not about Canaanite blood. God is not a racist against the Canaanites. Mm-hmm. He is against their beliefs, because on one hand, he kills who's wicked to the bone, who's a Canaanite, right? Canaanite blood in him. And you have Tamar, who's a Canaanite. One redeemed and saved, the other one wicked and cut down, which means what? God is not a respecter of racial divisions or tribal or ethnicities. It all comes down to whether or not you have faith and you're his chosen. So he kills the descendants of Judah to protect a Canaanite woman. Think how crazy that is.
Yeah. It's weird.
She has no blood of Abraham in her. At least had some blood of Abraham in him. Yeah. And yet, boom, the child through Judah, dead. And to protect the Canaanite woman. So this throws our categories upside down. Wait a minute, God's protecting the Gentile, the outsider, the one outside the bloodline, and is going to graft her in, but the person who's going to be with her needs to be grafted into faith. Like that's going to be the important marker, as we'll see. So the name Tamar, worthless trivia, means date palm.
Nice.
Evergreen, beauty, victory, paradise, prosperity, all those things happen along with her. And let's see, where am I at? All right, verse 8. So then Judah said to Onan, so now you had Now this gets weird. We got to go back in ancient culture. Ready? Modern day, this would be like, we're in ancient times. Judah said to Onan, the second-born son, right, between him and Shua's daughter, the Canaanite. And so, hey, Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her and raise up offspring for your brother. So this is what's called levirate marriage. And this was prevalent in a lot of cultures in the ancient world. It would be in the Hebrew culture. It's in Deuteronomy 25, actually, where this levirate marriage is talked about. Hittites, Assyrians, ancient India, ancient China, and some places in Egypt. Like you saw, levirate marriage was all over the place, and this is what it meant. Levir in Latin means brother-in-law. It's where that phrase comes from later on. But this is what it means. Let's say I'm your older brother. This is going to get weird.
Yeah, I don't like when you personalize this. Just to make you. I knew you were going to do this. I was actually thinking this whole time. I hope he doesn't use us as examples.
Well, let's use your actual family.
Okay,
right?
Of course.
Like, let's say that your older brother died. Okay. And they
I have one too, so this isn't even like
but let's say that no kids. They don't have kids yet.
Okay.
Your responsibility as the younger brother in this ancient world is to take your brother's wife, to bring her into your protection, and to give her children, which means you have to sleep with your older brother's wife to give her children.
Yes.
Yes. Wouldn't that be like, I've got 3 older brothers, and I'm like, first off, those poor women. But like,
it seems crazy to us in this modern world. It makes sense once we explain it, but like on this first read, you're like, this is a wild ride.
So the goal of this was actually in the ancient world, you got to remember, like, survival was a lot harder back then. It wasn't like you just went and got a job on Indeed and you could make a living and go to the grocery store. Like,
yeah, there wasn't freedom.
Starvation was a real thing. Survival was a real thing. And so this was promoting family loyalty, like, take care of my wife if I go, like, give her children who will take care of her when she gets old, give her a legacy, provide, keep my name going, keep her from poverty and shame, because a lot of times in a lot of cultures in the ancient worlds, widows were seen as cursed. like your husband died while you were married to him, you're a bad luck charm. We'll see that. Tamar will become that, actually, in this chapter. And so this was seen as something that you did that was a sacrificial, and this sounds backwards, but it was a sacrificial act of love.
Yeah.
That said, I'm going to take my fortune and all of my security as a younger brother, and I'm going to lay some of it down to bring you in to have children that I'm going to have to take care of, and you're now under my umbrella of protection, and I'm going to give you children, which, by the way, remember when we talked about barren women, if you didn't have children, like Rachel's like, give me children or I'll die. Well, there's a little bit of truth to that, where when you get old and you're alone and you can't work and you can't find a livelihood, your children would take care of you. And so the levirate laws were like, this is, it seems exploitative of women, but it's actually designed to protect women. And it was seen as a merciful, noble thing in the ancient world, not an excuse to exploit.
Yeah, this is the only way Tamar survived. It's not like after died, she's like, oh, did he have life insurance? Like, I should be expecting a check any day. I'll just go pick up an extra shift at the grocery store. That just wasn't in existence for her.
Correct.
Like, the only way she lived is if Onan does this.
Yeah. This is kind of a kooky theory, but I was having this, like the story of the gospel in a very bizarre sense. Like, the gospel itself is an arranged marriage. We've talked about that before, how, the father has purchased a bride, for his son. We haven't seen him yet eye to eye, face to face, and yet we are destined to be his bride forever. That's the church is. So this is also kind of a bizarre picture of a levirate marriage. And so let me twisted, but the first Adam is going to be the father of all humanity, right? But he dies, and along with him, all of his posterity dies, right? And so what happens? The last Adam, the younger Adam, comes along, takes the bride to himself, restores posterity for both Adam and himself. Without Christ coming in to do what Adam should have done and to bring his posterity back to life, Adam's legacy is gone forever.
Yeah.
And so in some weird sense, like that self-sacrificing love that says, I'll step in and I'll be the one who lays down my interest so that you can be restored, Adam. The family line, it's meant to be seen as, oh, this is a sacrificial thing. Today, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy talk to us. But try to enter into, 3,800 years ago, mindset of how the world works.
Yeah, we just have other means to take care of people today.
Correct.
They didn't back then.
Correct. And so in the Code of Hammurabi, like Law 155 says, if a man selects a wife for his son and the son dies without children, the man may marry her himself. So all these cultures had ways where the brother stepped in, and the Code of Hammurabi, it was actually the father. If I bought or arranged for a marriage for my son and my son died, then I as a father would marry my daughter-in-law, which is even worse, I think. But that was the Code of Hammurabi. So just saying, like, this was, if you're brought into the family, the household,
we're going to take care of you.
We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you're provided for, you have children, legacy, and this was seen as a good thing.
I think if someone out there ever made a Bible show bingo as they listen to this show, the Code of Hammurabi should be one of the tiles.
It's true.
Because
this could be a good merch
Hammurabi every once in a while.
But it was like a prevalent law code that was from
Genesis,
the ancient
that's all we got. I love it. I'm just saying.
There it is. It's kind of a wild read. Just go read some of those laws, or the Hittite codes, or the Assyrian codes. And they're not that long, by the way, but they are wild versus where our culture. Be very thankful that Judeo-Christian ethics have spread around the world. All right, so verse 9, it says, but Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So what's his? So if levirate marriage is supposed to be self-sacrificial and I'll provide and I will give of myself to make sure that I honor my older brother and that I protect this woman, Onan.
All about him.
You hear it right out of the gates. He knew that the offspring would not be his, right? So whenever he went into his brother's wife, he'll take that responsibility, which is gross, right? Like, I'll take the pleasurable side of this obligation. And now, brace yourself.
Ready?
He would waste the semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. So he will exploit her for gratification. And yet when it comes to giving children at the last moment, when that would be a possibility, he would spill his semen on the ground.
It's a weird competition with your dead brother. Like, I don't want to give my, he's dead. Like, what am I doing?
Think of how demeaning this would have been for her.
Yeah.
And you get, the first one, God strikes dead, for whatever reason. Well, this one we're told what he does. And so it gives you a clue, like God is not game for people exploiting Tamar, because it said, and what he did was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and he put him to death also. All right, so the heart of God for exploited people, or for people who abuse sexuality or treat it as if it's a carnival act, like God's not thrilled here, especially when it is his redemptive messianic line. Like he is protective of this line and this mission that is coming through this line to redeem all the world. So here we're going to take a left turn just because it's in
have to.
Christian tradition. This is a big deal. And Catholicism, they make a bigger deal out of this than the Protestants do, but they use this passage to say that birth control is wrong. Like birth control is unethical, because what did Onan do? He enjoyed
had the sex, but not the
correct. He enjoyed the act, but then refused to have the children, or took special means to not have children. He went out of his way to make sure no children came. And I did unfortunately for our listeners and viewers, I had to write a paper on this for seminary when I was going through it.
Nice. How many pages was it?
It actually way longer than it should have been, I'm sure. It's just my style. But it was fascinating to go through, because I've always thought, like, they call this Onanism in Catholicism. Like, they're very against birth control. They're very against all that. And it's called Onanism. And I didn't know this, but until the last century, 150 years or so, Protestantism was very, very opposed to birth control. And the reason for that, when you go back and you read through it, like, you had founders, fathers of the faith that all through, and then when you get to Luther, Calvin, very, very opposed to it. The reason why they would say this is, okay, the Psalms come to you and they say children are a blessing from the Lord, right? Yeah. Blessed is the man who has a quiver full of them. And you say what back to that?
Nah.
No thanks. I don't want the blessing. I have my own definition of blessing. No, thank you. I'm able to, but I'm not. No, thank you. And like, it was seen as taking what God calls a blessing and saying no.
Yeah, rejecting
and so both Catholics and Protestants were in agreement that this is an act of wickedness to say no to the blessings of God. And it was like, wow, I had never really thought of that. But I want to read just two quotes from the most famous Protestant voices.
Okay.
Who would you say they are? Most famous Protestant.
Luther and Calvin. I mean,
we're talking. I already said them. Whatever.
No, I knew that, everybody. It's not just because he said them.
But I already gave it away. Anyway, listen to what Luther says. So, father of the Protestant Reformation. Many hate fertility in a wife for the sole reason that the offspring must be supported and brought up. For this is what they commonly say. Why should I marry a wife when I'm a pauper and a beggar? I would rather bear the burden alone and not load myself with misery and want. But this blame is unjustly fashioned on marriage and fruitfulness. Indeed, you are indicting your unbelief by distrusting God's goodness, and you are bringing greater misery upon yourself by disparaging God's blessing. For if you had trust in God's grace and promises, you would undoubtedly be supported. But because you do not hope in the Lord, you will never prosper. Martin Luther.
I'm trying to get around what he said because I don't want to. How many kids did Luther have?
I don't know. But I was reading that and I was like, holy cow. Like in 1873, there was something called the Comstock Law in the United States that prohibited the distribution of any drug or medicine for the prevention of contraception. And anybody who violated that law was faced, quote, this is in the statute, hard labor and the penitentiary for not less than 6 months for each offense.
That's wild.
That was 150 years ago. Like here.
That's crazy.
That's how the worldview of the Christian world was. Like, you did not prevent fertility because that was the hallmark of God throughout the Bible. Be fruitful and multiply. When they went into slavery in Egypt, what happened? They were fruitful and multiplied. When they were in exile, they were fruitful and multiplied, and God blessed them. And so I'm doing this paper going like, gulp. Because I've always been like, of course, contraception.
I don't like this podcast anymore.
I figured you wouldn't. But now listen to Calvin. So Calvin, who's always a punch in the face.
We got to quote him.
Anyway, he says, talking about this specific act in his commentary, said, this act of Onan, quenches the hope of his family and kills the son, which could be expected before he is born. This wickedness is now as severely as is possible condemned by the Spirit through Moses. When a woman in some way drives away the seed out of the womb through AIDS, then this is rightly seen as an unforgivable crime. That's way too far, by the way. Onan was guilty of a similar crime. So you want to talk about
the pendulum.
This, from all sides of the church, was universally seen as we don't do that. We should be a people who produces life. We should be a fertile people. And now when you look around the world, what do you see? All the nations of the West,
Not a lot of kids.
not a lot of kids. We don't value family and life as we ought, and now we're withering away. It's cultural suicide. So there's my soapbox for the moment. But this passage is a big part of the reason why the church, it's part of the reason why the church is so opposed to birth control, especially Catholics.
That's interesting.
All right. What do you think?
Yeah, there's our talk on that. Do we need to caveat anything?
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely disagree with Calvin that this is some kind of an unforgivable crime. That's crazy.
Because biblically, there's only one of those, and that's
correct.
Not it.
And so he's way off there. And he's usually really careful with Scripture, but that's crazy to say. But it shows you the intensity with which all previous generations of the church dealt with this issue. And at a minimum, if we should give it some serious thought and reflection.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll speak personally, we are actively having these conversations, Morgan and I, and it is, even just right now, it was a heart check, being what obstacles am I bringing up to why should we not have a third child? Mm-hmm. And they're always, and now I guess I'm sinful because of this, they're always oh, that kid won't fit in our condo, which is true.
Yeah.
Oh, that kid, you're thinking about future bills, and you're thinking about, weeks where Morgan is off of work and months where that happens and what that does. And it's, maybe not to the degree of Onan, but the more I think about it right now, brain to mouth, it's oh, those are all selfish reasons because that next kid would impact my lifestyle that I view, that I want.
Yeah. And it's hard to wrap your brain around because there are a lot of practical reasons why you're oh, you shouldn't have any more kids. Yeah. I see people all the time in ministry where I'm gosh, those poor kids, Yeah,
there's wisdom.
But I think this is specifically aiming at people that care about how they're leading their lives. These are believers. It's aimed at believers. This isn't talking about the Canaanites. It's talking about people within the family of God, the Messianic line. You're aiming to bring up your family in a different way. You're not, addicted to drugs and, all these crazy things. This is not for them, but for the people following God. Be fruitful and multiply. That's part of the ethos of who we are as people. And this part's going to make people mad. But that seems to be the ethic of Scripture. God is always overcoming to bring life, and that's his ethic. So if you can bring forth life, you should.
And we know that there are people, and that's a good point to make if you can, because we know infertility is real.
Mm-hmm.
And we know countless stories just personally of people who are God, please just give them children. If there's anybody who should be parents, it's these people. They've struggled with it. Would you just please bless them with it? So we know that there's a whole section of people out here listening to this, and there's some grief from it probably.
And those people recognize the preciousness of life. Yeah. More than anyone. So verse 11, set that aside. Don't let that sit on you too hard. But it is interesting to know that that's a trajectory of everybody. And so Onan's abusing Tamar. Boom, he's gone, dead. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, okay, I have 3 kids. I had he's gone. I have Onan, he's gone. You're the common denominator here. I have one son, Shelah, left. And he says, it's just Judah so gross. Remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up. Now that's wrong. That's not what happens usually, right? It's not oh, this son failed. I've got another son that you'll be married to someday. But in the meantime, get out of here. Go back to your father's home.
So she should have stayed with Judah.
She should have stayed with Judah, but he's go away. You're out of here. And it's very clear, as you'll see in the story, he has no intentions of ever taking care of her.
Yeah.
Even though he's He's taken the bride price. He's given her to he's, all that stuff. Now at this point, when he realizes, like, my sons are dying with you, like, go away. Yeah, I'll call you. Don't call me. I'll call you when it's time for you to marry Shelah. And he feared that Shelah would die like his brothers did. So Tamar went and remained in her father's house.
Which is funny because the other common denominator, not just Tamar, but it's Judah as the father. It's like he can't see that mirror. He's like, got to be her. Like, I know I raised these two. Yeah. 0 for 2 here.
Maybe instead of doing that, maybe you should train up your son to not act like this in a way that God decides to kill them. But it's like, no. Rather than dealing with that, we'll just send her away. And the problem is now she goes back to her father's home. She's been a wife to two dead husbands, which means people are going to think that she's cursed. She's unmarriable. She's no longer a virgin. She's a burden on her father. He has basically written her fate. In the ancient world, like, this is not a good fate, and he doesn't care. Just go away. So one of the questions that jumped in my mind as we were putting this together is, like, whatever happens to this guy, Shelah? Like, you ever thought about that?
Honestly, no, but...
Because dies, we know what happens to him. Onan dies, we know what happens to him. Shelah is supposed to be given to Tamar, but never is. Does he just kind of wander off and continue living among the Canaanites? Like, what happens to him? And the Bible actually answers that, but it doesn't answer it in this section. So I want to pause and just show, like, how good God is. So you have this guy, Shelah, who's been raised in this crazy home. If you go to Genesis 46:12, when Moses is listing Judah's sons who went to Egypt with him, like, eventually during the famine, they go to Egypt, the whole family's together. Guess who's listed among them?
Our boy.
This guy. So he's the son of Judah with a Canaanite woman who will be grafted into the nation of Israel eventually. And he's going to have his own territory. In Numbers 26:20, when the census is going on, there's an entire clan that's called the Shelonites, right? And so there you see God has spared Shelah, and brought him into the clan of Judah, which I think is just cool mercy.
Yeah, even with his dad's sin about him, which seems weird. Like, Judah's in sin by protecting him and not giving him Tamar, but God sees that and lets Shelah have a future.
Yeah, which is just cool, God's mercy, because we don't know what this guy's like. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. Okay, so now the Canaanite woman that Judah has married dies. And when Judah was comforted, and what that means is, like, when your wife died, it was like almost seemingly formulaic, where you had a period where you said, for this amount of time, I'm going to hole up and I'm just going to grieve my wife and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to just mourn. My life is going to stop. So you remember when Jacob is like, I will never be comforted.
Yeah.
He's like, this period of mourning will never stop. I'm going to go to my grave and mourning. Judah's time of mourning for his wife finally stops, and he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite.
Hiram's back.
And so in this, like, one of the little things that we see, okay, got to remember how much time has passed since Judah left Jacob.
Decades?
Like, it's got to be less than 20 years, but we're probably 15. I mean, like, at least 17 maybe. So, because these kids are growing up, they're getting to the age of being able to procreate. You've had gone. Now Onan comes up, he's gone. And now Shelah's finally reaching the age, and it doesn't work out. But it's all within 20 years. That has to be for the Joseph narrative to make sense. And so here you have him, and he struck out. He's on his own. He's still in the Canaanite turf. So he spent almost 2 decades being like, I'm done with that life over there.
Mm-hmm.
He's still over here. His sheep shearers are over here. He's making his own way. He's got his own industry. He's got his own flocks. He's got his own sheep shearers. Like, he is striking out on his own. And it says, and when Tamar was told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments. So both of them are in mourning. He's done. She's been mourning for far longer, but he's not like, okay, you can stop mourning now. She's been left at her father's house to just wear black. He's not like, okay, you can be done now to go out and fix your own thing. Because, by the way, she's not allowed to marry anyone else, right? But Judah's not going to allow her to marry his son. So she's just left in mourning perpetually. Like, think about this. Judah left Jacob to perpetually mourn and was fine with it. What has he done to Tamar?
Same thing.
I'm going to leave you to perpetually mourn, and there's never going to be a day where I give you a husband. You just stay in your black. And so she takes off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapping herself up. Now, in the Joseph and Judah narrative, every time there's a change of clothing, something big's about to happen. So she covers herself with a veil, wrapping herself up, and she sat at the entrance to Anaim, which is on the road to Timnah. So it's all in this network of little towns. And she saw Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. She knows Judah's lying to her and exploiting her. And so when Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. So now this is kind of wild, and we learn later that what Tamar has done, now this, without saying a word, colors the story so dramatically. She's dressed as a prostitute, but not just any prostitute. Later on, when they go back looking for her, it's like they're looking for a cult prostitute, which means she takes on an appearance that makes it look like, because I told you how Canaanites worship, right? They worship through these orgies and sexual grossness. She's dressed up as a prostitute that you would use to worship the Canaanite gods. So, and which means what? She's scheming, saying, oh, Judah has just gotten done mourning his wife.
She knows what is going to happen.
If I just dress up like a cult prostitute on the way to his sheep shearers, I won't even have to approach him.
Yeah.
Like, he will not be able to walk by me.
That's what kind of man he is, and she knows it.
And that speaks volumes. And it's not just that he's got the appetitive side of him and the lust and everything else, which is there for sure. But it's a cult prostitute, which means what?
It's a religious practice.
He's in.
Yeah.
Like, this is how he's been worshiping, and she knows it. He's walked away from God, from Yahweh entirely. He's in the Canaanite camp, the faith of the Canaanites, the actions, the behaviors of the Canaanites. Everything about him has become utterly taken over by Canaanite culture, and maybe had been for a long time. But anyway, she knows he will not be able to walk by me, which is wild. And when he comes to her, he doesn't even ask for her name, right? It says that when Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she covered her face. He turned to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come into you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So you're about to take on one of the most meaningful, sacred acts. You don't even know the person's name or see their face. It's just an act of cold, gross Canaanite worship. And she said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" So she's playing along with it because she needs to have children in the ancient world. And so, like, what do we know about Judah's character? Stop for a moment.
Yeah, what's he done?
He's betrayed his brother for silver. He's the Judas figure here. He has callously left his father in a fixable grief. Like, he could have been like, "Hey, Dad, he's in Egypt. Let's go get him."
Yeah.
But he just chooses to let his dad suffer in misery for the rest of his life. He's married a Canaanite. He's moved in with the Canaanites. We know that he's an idolater, that he visits regularly because she knows he will engage it, that he's visiting shrine prostitutes. He's an adulterer. He's a fornicator. He's not married to this person, and he's incapable. He's so appetitive that she knows he won't even be able to pass me by. I don't even have to go to him and be like, "Hey," or anything like that. It was really bad, but she doesn't have to do anything. He just sees, oh, there's a prostitute. I haven't planned on doing this, but I can't pass her by without engaging.
Yeah, I always do this no matter what.
That's right. And so she's like, "What will you give that you may come into me?" He doesn't have any money. So it's not like he's like, "Oh man, I don't have any money, so I guess I can't." It's like, "I'll pawn something off." Like, what do you, like, he can't resist the urges. So he answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." And she said, "If you give me a pledge until you send it." And he said, "What pledge should I give you?" And she replied, "Your signet and your cord and your staff that's in your hand." And so he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. What are you thinking right now?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. But there's something really profound about what she asks for.
It's everything for him.
It is. It's his whole identity. There's a guy named Robert Alter, not a believer. He was a professor at University of California, Berkeley, but he's amazingly brilliant at reading, the Hebrew scriptures. He says the seal was a cylinder seal, so you'd have attached to a cord usually worn around the neck. So imagine a little thing that you could roll over wax. It's in a cylinder, but it's a cord that goes around your neck, so it's hanging on your neck. And it says it would be rolled over documents incised in clay. It would be the means of affixing a kind of self-notarized signature. The staff is a symbol of your authority. Tamar's stipulated pledge, then, is an extravagant one, taking the instruments of Judah's legal identity and social standing. And that is intentional here, because what's happening? It is a gut check moment meant for us. His entire identity is wrapped up in these things. Like, this is who he is. This is how he's known to the world. And what does he say? I will trade my identity to fulfill my appetites. Personalize that. Like, what is your identity? How do you see yourself? Like, what's your ultimate identity?
Well, I'm a child of God.
Child of God. You know, it's like your mom used to say, remember who you are and whose you are.
Yeah.
You know, you have an identity, and it's like Judah's like, here, I'll set all that aside. Everything that these things represent, which is me.
Yeah.
For a taste, for just to be able to consume for a moment. And it's like, you know, the New Testament comes and it says that citizens of this earth are ruled by their stomachs. They're ruled by their appetites, right? And then it contrasts believers and says that we're citizens of a heavenly city. We're not ruled by our stomachs. We have something else that drives us. But the wicked are ruled by their appetites, and that's Judah. He just runs from one thing to the next. What will satisfy me? My identity, I don't care. Like, I just need something to fill my appetite. And that is the nature of sin. And Judah's he's going to be confronted with the fact that his identity has become worthless.
Yeah.
In chasing the things of the Canaanite culture.
Yeah, because he didn't even second guess giving her that.
Not a hesitation.
I mean, even outside of like the spiritual danger and everything that shows about him, but like even just in the physical world, like she could do whatever she wanted with that signet afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like she can make Judah do whatever. She can roll that in every document that she wrote up.
That's right.
And Judah's bound by it.
That's right.
So it's like, he's literally like, I got nothing. Take this.
But when you think of people that come to you and they're in devastation, and it's usually because of some kind of addiction, whether it's a chemical or, you know, drugs or whatever, or other kinds of sinful addictions, it's amazing what people will trade their entire identity. They'll trade their relationship with God. They'll trade their families. They'll trade their kids. They'll trade so much just to be able to keep feeding this beast, right?
Yeah.
And Judah's like, my whole identity, I'll give it away to be able to just fulfill this urge that I had at a moment without prior planning upon seeing a cult prostitute. Mm-hmm. And another thing that this shows is that Judah really is done with being under his dad's credit card. Like, right? He's got his own stuff. He's operating at the prodigal son story. He comes back and the father restores the signet ring to him of the household.
You're still under us.
Judah's like, I got my own stuff. I'm signing my own checks now. And so and another thing that's interesting is what do you find here? The whole story of Jacob is marked by deceiving people to get
clothing,
a blessing through clothing. And what do you find here? There's a great scheme of deception that's being used to further the line of the Messiah. It's like, well, good grief.
What are we going to get away from this?
So verse 19, then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to take back the pledge from the woman's hand, he didn't find her. So she's like, okay, I got the goat. Let me go get the cord seal and staff.
Stand-up guy, though. He's sending the young goat.
Way to go, Hiram. Yeah. So, and he asked the men of that place, hey, where's the cult prostitute who is at Anaim at the roadside? So here's where it tells us she was a shrine prostitute. And they said, no cult prostitute's been here.
Uh-oh.
So he returned to Judah and said, I've not found her. Also, the men of that place said, no cult prostitute's been here. And Judah replied, let her keep the things as her own, or we'll be laughed at. You see, I sent this young goat, and you did not find her. So interestingly, Judah's not a psychopath. He cares what people think about him. He's got some sense of shame, but his only care is what other people think. He doesn't care about his own conscience. He doesn't care what God sees, which is everything. He's only concerned that people are going to laugh at him, and he knows his behavior is laughable, right? So he clearly identifies his behavior as wrong, but here's what's probably shocking to us most of all. He's not upset because of you visiting a prostitute.
No.
I don't think that's part of it. Maybe because he visited a prostitute immediately after he finished mourning for his wife. So it's like, Oh, I finished mourning for my wife.
Go to prostitution.
Like what? Like that would be demeaning to his former wife and family. But he's most embarrassed. Why?
Got tricked by a prostitute.
He got tricked by a prostitute, and he gave the things that were most precious to him for like a moment.
Yeah.
You know, here I'm without my seal cord and staff to feed this appetite, and he knows like, oh, this is a problem. And even though he's rotten on the inside, he's only concerned about external appearances. What do people think? Are they going to laugh at me? What's my reputation going to? I don't care that I'm rotten. I don't want anyone else to know that I'm rotten. And again, God gets in our business because that's us.
We're rotten.
Yeah, I mean, we can be, and we get more concerned about what other people think than what God thinks. So verse 24, about 3 months later, Judah was told, hey, Tamar, your daughter-in-law that's supposed to be left in perpetual mourning and wearing black and, you know, not supposed to ever have any relationship with anyone ever again, has been immoral. Moreover, she's pregnant by immorality. So I love that they have standards for the females of Canaanite culture.
Bad.
And Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. Now,
Jump to that conclusion quickly.
so all the wickedness that you see in Judah, just imagine how calloused his heart is.
Yeah.
The list that we've developed. Now his daughter-in-law is pregnant when she's not supposed to be. And his verdict is let her be burned, which is not just her at this point.
It's a baby.
She's pregnant. And he callously is like, burn her.
Yours.
How you feel about Judah?
Not great.
Really gross. So it's like, don't let anyone know about my wickedness. But when her wickedness is known, burn her. I mean, he's a self-righteous hypocrite. To the bone. He's only concerned about that. So he's got no problem exploiting a shrine prostitute, but he wants to execute his daughter-in-law because there's rumors that she has prostituted herself. You see how crazy this is?
Yeah.
And he's willing to kill both of them. And so if you go into the ancient world, what am I about to cite?
The Code of Hammurabi.
All right, get out your bingo cards. The Code of Hammurabi allowed only this punishment in cases where you were guilty of incest. It was considered like an extreme penalty to be burned, and it was reserved only for incest. It says this in Law 157. If a man after his father's death should lie with his mother, they shall burn them both. So if your dad dies and you...
Yeah, we all understood it.
All right. Then you get burned. Well, what's happening here is you have the father-in-law who's
Slept with the daughter-in-law.
whose son died, he sleeps with the daughter-in-law. So in a sense, by law, this would be incestuous. Who should be burned?
Both of them.
Both of them, right? According to the customs of the day, both of them should be burned. But he's like, she should be burned. She's done this wicked thing. And so as she was being brought out, presumably to be burned, she sent word to her father-in-law, Judah, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. You want to know who impregnated me? It's the guy that owns this stuff. And there's his seal and his signet seal and his cord and his staff. And she said, oh, Judah, please identify whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff. And she gives him, by the way, the opportunity to say, it's not mine, right? She doesn't say these are yours. It's like she frames it, and it's like, whose are these?
Yeah.
Which is interesting, right? It's like she's saying the man who has this identity, this is the man who's guilty of this wickedness. And so Judah identified them and said, she is more righteous than I, since I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not know her again. Now I think this is Judah's conversion moment.
It's a transformation.
What you don't see Judah do after this, you don't see him do any new wicked stuff. Like from this point forward, you're going to see him take a more redemptive, he's going to go home to his father's house right after this because he's going to be there when the famine hits. So like Judah has a conversion moment. Is like, whoa, look at where I've gotten myself. Look at the train wreck and all the scattered carnage that's behind all these actions, and my sons and the way that they lived and died. Like everything about this, he doesn't issue public denials. He doesn't say those aren't mine.
Yeah,
he publicly says, those are mine. And this woman is more righteous than me because I cheated her out of the chance to marry my son Shelah. And so there's so much about this, and it's like one verse, but it's like public confession.
Yes.
All right, that's important. You have her, like, these are mine, and he praises her publicly. Why does he bother to do that? Like, he could have been like, oh, these are mine. I'm so ashamed of myself.
He restores her, in a sense.
He cares about restoring her. Like, what, a verse or two earlier, he's like, burn her. And now he's like, she's better than me.
Yeah.
So, like, something happens in that moment where, like, God put the smelling salts in front of his face, and he's woken up to realize just how nasty he is. And I think he realizes, like, this is not good. I certainly don't want to be like and Onan. I know how things ended up for them when they abused her. And so, like, she's more righteous than I am. And I think he praises her publicly because she's still the scandalous one here. She pretended to be a prostitute to sleep with her father-in-law. So Judah wants to publicly announce, like, no, she's better than me. You leave her alone. She's okay. If somebody needs to be punished here, who is it? It's me. So if you're not going to punish me, you better leave her alone because she's more righteous than me. So it's like he gets in front of her and protects her, and he never sleeps with her again. He honors her again. He takes care of these kids. All of a sudden, she's in his house. Like, out of your father's house, you're coming into my house. And all this is left unsaid, but the story affirms this. And you have this genuine, I think, moment of penitence where this guy's changed in a moment.
Yeah, and he said what he did wrong. He said, I did not give her to my son, Shelah. Like, I was the wrong one.
Yeah.
Moment of repentance.
It seems that way. Like, if you have to take a step back and go, why does he do this? I think it's genuine. And I think he's overwhelmed at just how evil. And like, Jacob has that moment where it's like, oh my goodness, look at all the carnage that this has. And when God says, hey, come back to me.
Yes.
He's given a fresh start. Here, you have Judah after all of this, utter evil and wickedness is now going to be restored into the family again. And ultimately, by the end of Genesis, you'll see this is the most redemptive figure of the story.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild. And I think one of the other things is this story, the smelling salt moment, you think of David again, because there's a lot of comparisons here. David is guilty of murder and adultery, like in his story, and same kind of thing when he hears of when Nathan comes and it's like, oh, there's a man who had sheep, and he paints this picture of actually who David is, but David doesn't realize he's talking about him. What does David think? This guy deserves to die. Yeah. And Nathan boldly says, you're that man. And all of a sudden David goes, whoa, I've become this. And it wrecks him. And that's what Psalm 51, is written. And it changes David after he had this great fall. This is Tamar saying to Judah, you are that man. You want to know who deserves to be burned, who's become so vile that they deserve death, they deserve to be forsaken? You are that man, Judah. And it wakes him up. And sometimes I think we need to wrestle with just how gross we are, but we don't grow despondent there. We recognize that the God of Jacob is our God.
Yeah.
He's the God who rescues scoundrels. But they have to come to the point where they go, gosh, that's me. I am that man. And that's when grace becomes amazing. Like, you would still take me. Yeah. But when we deny who we are, we just spiral. It's like we become just cold and insensitive. It's like a wound that has a scab over it. We become insensitive and callous to evil. And so it says, when the time of her labor came, there were twins in her womb. Well, that sounds familiar, right? You got Jacob with Esau, and now we've got these twins. And when she was in labor, now here's another crazy part, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, this one came out first. But as he drew back his hand, behold, the other brother came out, and she said, what a breach you've made for yourself. Therefore, his name was called Perez. So Perez is going to be the child that will be in the line of Christ. But Zera, because he came first, will be considered the firstborn, right? Follow? Well, Zera comes out, hand, scarlet thread tied to him, pulls back in, Perez comes out, and she's like, oh, you've made a breach for yourself. So she calls him Perez, that will be the second-born, technically, the second to breach, but the first one completely out.
I feel like Perez got out
I'm
first.
I'm with you, but just custom of the ancient world. Don't take it up with me. You got to...
Where's the coat of Hammurabi?
So Perez goes into the line of Jesus, And his name is going to be associated with blessing in the ancient world. We don't know a ton about this guy, but like when you get to the story of Ruth, listen to this. When Ruth is at the end and all the people are coming to celebrate her marriage to Boaz and them coming together to have children, they say, "We are all witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together build up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah," which is Bethlehem, renowned in Bethlehem, "and may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give to you by this young woman." And by the way, Boaz married her. Why? Because her husband died, and Boaz was fulfilling the tradition of
Kinsman redeemer.
Kinsman redeemer, but levirate marriage, where the family takes you in and marries you and gives you children. And so that whole story is kind of full circle. And now it says, "Afterward, his brother came out with the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zera." So another cool pattern. So we've got Perez who comes out. He's in the line of Christ. You'll see that in Matthew chapter 1, verse 3. But then you have Zera comes out, and he's got this scarlet thread tied around his hand because he was supposed to be the firstborn. And so technically he gets the bill. Zera's not in the Messianic line, but the Bible does hint that he's redeemed. So, for example, 1 Kings 4:31, it says, "He was wiser than anyone else," Solomon, "including Ethan, the Ezraite." So these are people that are in the covenant family of God that are considered wise. But the most famous Zeraite, you know who it is?
Achan.
So if you don't know that story, and Joshua and this story, so hold on to all the things that are happening between Tamar and Judah, and now let's fast forward to Joshua, which is like 500 years. The Jews come out of Egypt, they go into the promised land, they're battling to get the promise, and they defeat Jericho. Then they go on to the next city, Ai, and they lose. And God's like, "It's because somebody in your camp has violated my law. I said that you were not to plunder Jericho, but somebody in your camp has plundered. They've taken the Babylonian garment. They've taken silver and gold. They are behaving wickedly." And so what happens is Joshua chapter 7 finds that Achan, the Zeraite, is found guilty of stealing the treasures of Jericho. And so think of the things that are going on in this story. He's a Zeraite, but then there's this lady who's in Jericho who's a Canaanite. And why is she spared? Because she hangs a scarlet cord out of her window. Okay, because scarlet was around Zera's wrist. Now you have Rahab hanging the scarlet cord out of her window, and she's spared. The Canaanite is spared, brought out of Jericho. The prostitute of the Canaanites is brought out, and she marries a guy named Salmon, who is in the line of Perez through Judah. So now you get, it's like he's saying Rahab is now the scarlet cord, married into the line of Perez. The prostitute is going to be taken into the line of Judah again, and Perez will have children with her, Salmon, the son of Perez, will have children with her to bring about the Messianic line. And there's all these echoes where you see God's favor through these little hints and clues where he's shifting the story of salvation to be even more along the unlikely path. And so one of the other things that's interesting about this is in Matthew chapter 1, verse 3, Zera's mentioned in the genealogy. It makes no sense because it's always like the father. But when you get here in Matthew 1:3, it says Judah, the father of Perez, he's the one that's in the line, and Zera by Tamar.
Even though he's not technically in the genealogy.
Yeah, so he gets, for some reason, he gets honored to be in the lineage of Jesus, even though he's not technically
good for him
along the line. So he gets honored. And I mean, this whole chapter, how would you summarize, like, what does God get? Why would God give us Genesis 38?
I mean, I think we finally get a short story of restoration, redemption that I think we needed as we go through Genesis. I think we see that the long-term restoration of this family, but for a guy to be like, hey, Judah's got to be out. But then you hear, like, Jesus is from the line of Judah, and you're like, okay, make that make sense for us. And this is the chapter that does it. Like, you see his wickedness, but you also see that, man, he repented and he was restored by God. Because that's all it takes. See your sin, acknowledge your sin, repent of your sin, and receive the mercy of Jesus.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things, and it's meant to be like, it should bother us a little bit, but it's the way that grace works, because
Yeah.
we don't earn it. Like our brains can't handle the fact that someone who didn't earn it is given favor. But the Bible is presenting us with two stories that are on train tracks. You have Joseph, who does the right stuff. Like he obeys the rules. He cares about what God thinks. He'll endure suffering, you're going to see in the coming chapters, with incredible righteousness and selflessness. And he's forgiving. He's got all the right traits. Like, this is the guy that should be in the Messianic line. Like, he's earned it. And over here you have Judah, who's like, oh man, let's roll out his rap sheet. And it's like, he's got so much wickedness in it. And you're like, well, clearly he should not be the guy. Like, okay, yeah, God forgave him, and ultimately he got his stuff together, but he's still, second rate under Joseph. He should not be in the Messianic line because he didn't earn it as much as Joseph does. And what does God do? That guy. I want him in my family tree. Joseph is honored. He's going to be lifted up in the scriptures and exalted, nothing taken away from his faithfulness. And yet God wants to see, you want to know who's the bigger player in the story of redemption?
Judah.
This guy. And it's like, he keeps doing that.
Yeah.
Like, he keeps taking the one that's the scoundrel that through a long process of mistakes and troubles is going to be redeemed. And he keeps picking that guy. Why?
Because that's us.
I think, one, that's us, but it should, like, you should be like, that's not fair. And then sit on that a minute.
Yeah.
Sit on your that's not fair. And then think about Jesus.
Yeah.
Who is the one who deserves all of the blessing. He deserves all the inheritance, all of it. He shouldn't share it with anyone because he's the only one who's earned it. He's the only one who deserves it. He is the only one who's done everything right, who has been obedient to the core in every situation. He is the one who's betrayed like Joseph, but he does it even better than Joseph. He's the one who will lay his life down actually. And when we sit there and we go, that's not fair, you better think about that one, because you being considered a son of the king, you being a son of God, you receiving an eternal inheritance, which you get to share from him, like God gives you that favor, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And God is preaching in Genesis this gospel of that's not fair, because he loves those people and redeems those people. It's not fair, but it's beautiful.
It's amazing.
You just can't walk away from Genesis without seeing the gospel.
Yep.
Like, we try to make the Old Testament as though God was way different. The gospel's all over this. It's God's mercy, God's grace to people who don't deserve it, because he's good. Not because they are, because he's good. And that's our hope. And so I hope as we go through this, the unfairness and all that stuff, like, if it does make you mad, okay, sit in what you deserve.
Talk to God.
You're right. And be grateful that we have someone who's far better than Joseph and far more gracious and forgiving than Judah, who sits to advocate for you and to clothe you in all the blessing when you don't deserve it, because that's his nature. All right, so we're going to close there. I want to thank you so much for watching. Join us next time as we get into Genesis 39, and you get to see Joseph, who is this incredible figure, who is so similar to Jesus in many respects, begin to endure this unjust suffering, and to see how God uses his suffering to redeem and bless all of those around him. Join us then. God bless.